thought I had my double life under control. My fiancé saw me as the perfect woman, loving, loyal, and ready for marriage. But I was hiding something that could destroy everything. When he found out the truth, I expected anger. I expected heartbreak. But what I didn't expect was his offer. Instead of leaving, he pulled me into something even darker. At first, it seemed like a way to fix things. Now I realize I was never in control. He was. The man I love is no longer the man I knew. And the worst part? I don't know if I'm his partner or his prisoner. How did I let this happen? And more importantly, how do I escape? I need your advice. My name is Sophia and I'm 45 years old. This is my story. I had a secret I never wanted my fiancé to find out. In my family, we lived a double life. We are prostitutes and very hardworking. My mother and my sisters were all on OnlyFans, making money from content we would never discuss in public. I was no different. But to my fiancé, I was just a regular woman, someone he wanted to build a future with. One weekend, I took him home to meet my mother. Everything was going well until that night. We were in my room, making love, when suddenly there was a knock at the door. I quickly pulled on my singlet and opened it. My mother stood there, arms crossed, shaking her head. "You two are making so much noise. The neighbors will complain," she said casually, as if it was normal to walk in on her daughter like this. I felt embarrassed, but my fiancé just chuckled, and we went back to what we were doing. Not long after, there was another knock. This time, I already knew it was her. Feeling bold and a little annoyed, I didn't bother covering up properly. But when I opened the door, what happened next shocked me. This time, my mother didn't just stand there. She walked in, undressed herself, and joined us in bed. My fiancé didn't seem uncomfortable. Instead, he made with me and my mother. He had threesome with mother and daughter. Although I enjoyed it, but it bothered me. It made me wonder, was he really the man I thought he was? Later, I confronted him about it. "Why didn't you push her out? Why didn't you tell her it was inappropriate?" He shrugged. I didn't think it was a big deal. That response haunted me, but I let it go because I loved him. I wanted our relationship to work. Weeks later, everything changed. He found out what I really did for a living. I don't know how, but he traced me to a brothel. That night, I was with a client when I heard some commotion outside my door. When I finished, I stepped out and saw my fiancé standing there, furious. 2 other men were also waiting their turn. He tried to push his way into the room, but the men held him back, reminding him that there was a queue. The humiliation burned in my chest. When he finally got inside, he didn't even wait for an explanation. He slapped me so hard that I lost my balance. "So this is what you do? This is who you really are?" His voice was filled with anger and pain. I cried, apologizing over and over again. He stormed out, dragging me with him, taking me home like I was his prisoner. I thought he would leave me for good, but he didn't. Instead, he calmed down, and after days of silence, he told me he forgave me. I was relieved. I wanted to change. I really did. And he promised that if I could prove I had left that life behind, he would still marry me. But then he lost his job. Days turned into weeks, and he had no income. That's when he came up with a plan. "You meet a lot of rich men, right? Especially married ones?" I hesitated before nodding. "Here's what we'll do," he said, lowering his voice. "Every time you book a hotel room with one of them, send me the location and room number. I'll book a room in the same hotel. When you two are undressed and busy in bed, send me a message. I'll barge in, pretend to be your husband who has caught you cheating and take pictures. Then we'll blackmail him for money." I was stunned. "You want us to scam people?" He smirked. "It's not a scam. They're cheating on their wives. We're just making them pay for it." At first I refused. But he kept talking, convincing me that this was the only way we could survive, that it was temporary. And so, I agreed. The plan worked better than I expected. Some men paid instantly, afraid of their secrets getting out. Others begged. Either way, we made more money than we had ever seen before. But something was wrong. He had promised to marry me, but now, whenever I brought up the topic, he dismissed it. Let's focus on making money first. We'll talk about that later. Now isn't the time. His excuses piled up. One night, after another successful blackmail job, I asked him again, "Why won't you marry me? You said you would." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Marriage isn't that important right now." I stared at him, realizing something I had ignored for too long. Maybe he never intended to marry me at all. Maybe he was just using me. Now I'm stuck. I love him, but I don't know if he really loves me back. If he did, wouldn't he be eager to commit? Or has this whole thing just been a game to him? A way to get rich while using me as his pawn? I need advice. If you were in my position, what would you do? Be honest. Even if the truth is hard to hear, I'll be reading the comments.